Listen, we could have a cut in September if all of a sudden growth slows and you get a little bit of inflation. But we're not going to get the 5, 6, 7 cuts.
And to your point, like usually you had Bitcoin track those decisions so closely, and they've just like broken free of that.
But same with gold, same with silver. The markets are telling us that we should be damn scared about what the government is doing with our deficit. Right, we're adding $1 trillion of debt every 100 days to our giant pile of $36 trillion in debt. If you're a Wall Streeter, if you're Stan Druckenmiller or Ray Dalio, that's existential to this country. And in an election year, no one's going to talk about it. But we've got a populist left president, and we had a populist right president, and now he's a candidate. And so, like, populism isn't good for fiscal, stewardship. Populism spends. And when you're spending like that, assets like Bitcoin are going to go high.
I think you guys have done a great job breaking this down. I was in the waiting room last week before the Trump news broke, so they kind of moved me to today. But I was listening to the breakdown of valuation across the markets. 27 times trailing earnings. We haven't seen very many times in history. So that's why I think discipline is really important. And cash is a choice, right? It's an asset that today yields about 5% while you wait. It gives you the buying power to buy things when they go on sale. Human beings do two things really, really well. We buy what we wish we would have bought, and we sell what we're about to need. Commodities broadly, despite the fact that they're making new highs every day, are at the cheapest price to paper assets they've ever been. And, in the kids game, right, paper beats rock. But in real life, rock beats paper. So we favor commodities. And you know how I feel about digital assets. Digital assets, to me, everyone needs to have some in their portfolio. They add diversification benefits because they're uncorrelated, because they don't derive their value from the same thing as traditional financial assets.
And one last question, Mark. Do you think that the volatility in digital assets will be dampened as more and more ETFs are approved?
Again, really, really great point. Absolutely. If you think about $58 billion of, mostly retail and advisory money coming into this space, and as they call it, the boomer wrapper, right? So you don't have to deal with hardware. You don't have to deal with software. You don't have to deal with self-custody. You can just buy an ETF just like anything else in your portfolio. I think that number goes to 300 billion over the next couple of years from the 58 today. I think that will dampen volatility. I think it'll lead to much higher prices.
So I would say if you look at developer traction, the two largest ones are Lightning and Stacks. Lightning is mostly for payments, and Stacks is effectively anything that you can do in Ethereum or Solana, you can actually do with BTC, which is super interesting.
Stocks that we want to watch at the open, well, you might want to, you might not care. GameStop surging again after Keith Gill or Roaring Kitty posted on Reddit showing what appears to be a $116 million bet on the brick-and-mortar video game retailer. Abigail Doolittle has more on GameStop. Abby?
There are so many directions we could go here, Matt. One of them being, have you played Uno and used that reverse card? Because the signal there is the idea that we're going to see a reverse in direction. Now, out of the April lows to the recent highs, the stock had been up more than 500%. Then out of that high into the recent lows, so much volatility here for GameStop. This stock had been down.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you join the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And we just keep getting more and more movies that keep you in the Matrix. And I'm going to go over that later. Now we have Mike Novogratz on the Fed and the government spending. And that's the reason why gold, silver, and Bitcoin have maintained their highs. And we know the central banks are buying up gold, and we know the central banks are definitely behind Bitcoin for the fourth industrial revolution. And we have the Bitcoin spokesperson, Michael Saylor, gets a tax settlement. Now we have Mark Yusko on digital asset volatility. And like I stated, guys, in the earlier video, that now that we have these ETFs, real Bitcoin is being bought. But the same way we're having inflows, it's not like we can't have outflows. And that's the reason why it's so important for you to follow the money. Now, again, GameStop steals this show. At the same time, Berkshire Hathaway halts, and you can clearly see the media blackout because there were absolutely no talk about it, like it didn't even happen. Remember, T+1 is going to require a lot of liquidity, and real-time settlement is going to require even more. That's the reason why these small and medium-sized banks are not going to make it, and especially these shell companies. All this wash trading, all this is out the window. And we have the consumer spending money like nothing is going on. And we all know consume means to be eaten up. And they're going to keep living in fantasy land until what? Just like you stated, till they take their job. And we know the NWO calls the problem, wait for the reaction, and run in with the solution. They printed 80% of all money in existence in 2 years. That created all this inflation, so therefore they could raise rates. We have housing prices have doubled. People are barely making it. And we know they're going to run to the government in order to get a solution. And the government already has that solution. It's been ready for over a decade. And that's what we're going to get, the robots, algorithms, and drones that take over the economy. And that's the reason why Saudi Aramco is getting ready. Selling more shares because they know all about the climate agenda. And that's the reason why they have the line. That's the reason why they're leading the metaverse. Also, they already have flying taxis. And then, guys, we have the distractions. Remember, the Fed is not just going to say, I took your money. We have Trump. We have Hunter Biden. And today we have Fauci. But like I stated, do not get caught up in 2020. Because, guys, remember, 2020 was a simulation for what's going to happen in the future. Another crisis, people sitting at home getting free money. And because we've seen this movie before, we already know how the sheep are going to react. And that's the reason why you have to make sure you get prepared, so therefore you don't fall for the devil's tricks. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
I've been telling you this is the roaring 20s since this started. And this is going to be that consumer because the same kind of things are driving it. You know, the roaring 20s were post-war and post a huge pandemic. And the consumer said, I'm going to wear short skirts, I'm going to go dance my heart out, and I'm going to spend money. And we're doing all the same things right now. And now it's just different because we're going to see Taylor Swift instead of going to some speakeasy someplace. But in fact, the consumer is reacting the same way psychologically. So if you're going to keep them from spending, you're going to need to hit them in the head with a 2x4, i.e. take away their jobs. And so far, despite what the Fed has done with crushing the money supply, and despite what they've done with quite high interest rates relative to pre-COVID, the consumer has just kept going. And you can finally stop them if we keep rates high enough, long enough. We will slow down jobs. We will make it hard. I mean, right now, like I said, you're paying 21% for short-term credit instead of 14.25%. If you moved across the street and bought the exact same house you're living in, your payments would double. We know those things are there. The consumer knows they're there too. But they have basically said, as long as I have the capacity to spend, I'm going to.
Yesterday, Saudi Aramco did actually open the books for the secondary share sale. They're looking to raise about $12 billion. And according to our reporting over here, Matthew Martin, he put out a comment yesterday saying that in the very few hours of those books being opened, they managed to satiate all of that $12 billion in demand already, just on the first couple of hours of that book being open. But we do know that they're going to keep on with the book building process throughout the course of this week. Matthew just put out an article now saying that a roadshow.
How much of the odds of Trump actually spending time behind bars depends on his conduct between now and July 11th when he's actually sentenced?
Sure, that's a really great question, because even before the trial started, we were speaking with legal experts who said that while they thought it was unlikely that Trump would be spending any time behind bars if he were convicted, that a lot really does depend on how a defendant behaves after they are found guilty.
President's son, Hunter Biden, on trial for 3 gun-related crimes, essentially buying a firearm and lying about his addiction to crack cocaine. At least those are the allegations. The jury was selected today. We understand that the opening statements will be tomorrow. How difficult is this case for the president's son and his defense team?
It does seem like a fairly difficult case, only because I'll point out that some of the biggest evidence that the government has against Hunter Biden came from, his own book. He sort of admitted,
once people feel empowered and protected legally, you are going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy? You're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you're going to get vaccinated. Yeah. Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you get vaccinated. And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives,
in reference to making it hard for people to get education, traveling, working, I'd say it very much was in context.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting at more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and
When the dealers have to step in to save a treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. I hate when countries go off the dollar. I would not allow countries to go off the dollar, because when we lose that standard, that will be like losing a revolutionary war. That will be a hit to our country, just like losing a war. And we can't let that happen. And too many countries now are fighting to get off the dollar.
Crypto Teacher and the New World Order book. Plus,